Have you ever wondered how successful architecture, engineering, and construction companies scale their business?
Or have you ever wanted guidance on how to get more growth, wealth, and freedom from your AEC company?
Well, then you're in luck. Hi, I'm Will Forat.
And I'm Justin Nagel, and we're your podcast hosts.
We interview successful AEC business leaders to learn how they use people, process, and technology to scale their businesses.
So sit back and get ready to learn from the industry's best. This is Building Scale. So wanting to help, obviously we niche down into construction companies, engineering companies, architecture companies, and now we're seeing that there's a scale problem when it comes to that. So we want to help those companies do that. And the best way that you can help is getting the industry leaders into, interviews and in a podcast to really give their insight. And we just want to be able to spearhead that initiative.
So, and who we're talking to really is owners, principals of, construction companies, architectural firms, engineering firms that are struggling to scale with their business.
Yeah. I mean, these are the leaders that are building America, right? These are the people that are building all the things we use. If it's infrastructure, if it's like restaurants, if it's whatever it is, they're building housing. They're building America essentially. And we want to help them be able to get more scale, more freedom and more wealth. It's not fair if they're not utilizing, the people, process, and technology that they have in place to its fullest. So getting some guidance from those that have learned how to scale in the industry, that's really what we're trying to help these companies with.
And so I guess the question would be not who we're bringing on, but what type of things should they expect out of this podcast?
To learn about how these business leaders have used people and process and technology to scale their businesses. And that could be in the same location as you, in Chicago, or you could be in Arizona, you could be in California, you could be wherever. But the process, people, and technology, those components stay the same for business. And specifically for the AEC industry, those are going to be, universal across the board.
And AECs, it's one of the oldest professions, right? We've been building things as humans since pretty much the beginning of time, since we had 2 feet.
Exactly. We 2 feet, got 2 sticks, rub them together, build yourself a wheel. How do we move more lumber somewhere? They talk about the big structures that were built way before modern construction. It's how did they build a pyramid? How did you build the Sphinx? And all these things. And there was a lot of ingenuity that went into that. So, people have been building things, constructing things forever. Since we got out of caves, we've been building houses.
And let's not forget, building things isn't just about buildings from skyscrapers to family homes. It's also the foundations. And we're talking about foundational things within a business, not just pouring concrete, right? There's foundational thinking in all kinds of places, including, what's underneath us, right? There's plenty of companies that, what are we walking on, right? The roads, the pavements, the actual basements, the underground garages, right? There's all kinds of technology that's being used, and those businesses are scaled in a way so that their expertise is used, in all those places. So whether we look up or down, we see construction, architecture, and engineering firms being used everywhere, right? And in order for the world to not break apart, we need these companies. So people
need to build stuff. That is the end result. We need things to be built, and this is the industry that does it all. You have from basic blueprinted drafts of new construction that you have an architect building, into the engineering, structural engineering of civil engineers, to the guys that are swinging hammers and using jackhammers and putting up buildings.
There's also things about trust, right? This business, all these businesses rely very much heavily on trust. And I'd say it's kind of that evil little secret, industry secret, is that trust is really hard within AEC. And we've seen it being broken over and over again. And that's why it's such a litigious industry. So, talking about how companies are preventing that litigation also increases their, scale, right? If you're not in litigation, you're able to grow the company. You're able to increase that wealth. So I'm sure we will see, and we'll talk to companies that have figured that out, right? I think that there's a lot in the industry that can be fixed changed or people have already figured out, and just no one else has figured it out in just that way. We need that scale across the world, really, so that we can build ourselves kind of a better place to live. We need that because construction, it's not everlasting. Things need to be remodeled. Things need to be taken care of in such a way so that we feel safe in our homes. We feel safe wherever we work, feel safe while on the roads. So, and scale helps repeat that process and increasing trust.
Yeah. And to that kind of shines on the fact that there are so many different specialties when it comes into this. You have certain architecture firms only do certain types of buildings. And then there are construction companies that are subcontractors. They're specialty subcontractors that maybe only do windows or only do plumbing or only do heating. Like they only do that one specific thing. So the concept to scale that, though, is still the same. It's just a different specialty that they're focusing on. And getting that knowledge across the board for the industry will just help everybody just be more efficient, push up the level across the board for scalability.
Let's not forget that scale is also about not racing to the bottom dollar, right? There's a big problem with profitability. It's why, construction companies appear and disappear so quickly. Not easy to build up a construction company, let alone keep one. We've seen many companies die out within a year, within 5 years, right? These are hurdles. How do you keep that business alive? How do you make sure that the decisions that you're making will keep your company running long after you've left, long after you've retired, right? Do you want to build a legacy? What do you want to do with the company that you're in? Did you inherit the company? Is it a family-run business, right? These are all different aspects of scale. And what happens when you have these different aspects in business that have nothing to do with putting hammer to nail, right? These are people problems. The different types of technology that are being used, everything from drones to computers to what's out in the cloud. Cybersecurity even is a thing now, right? Things that were never considered even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, now have to be taken into consideration because the world has changed.
Yeah. And that end goal of somebody trying to build legacy, that's one option. Then you also have the option of, I want to grow this business to exit. And that's another option. But the component there is you need scalability for either of those realities to become actual reality. So
why are we building this podcast? Because we thought, after scratching our heads, sometimes the easiest path forward in business is the one someone else has already traveled.
It's so true. It's the amount of times that we've seen businesses just struggle over things that other people have already figured out. It's a shame. So hopefully we can add that guidance across the board for this industry.
And I hope that we can add value. And sometimes the best value is when people ask those questions that we haven't thought to answer. Sometimes the best questions come from our listeners and our readers and those that, really are hurting. Well, we hope that they bring those questions to us because I'm sure someone else is asking that question. They just weren't as loud about it.
Definitely. Couldn't agree more. Thank you for joining us today and listening to this episode.
If this episode did help you,
then be sure to share it with someone else who needs to hear it.
If you want to be a guest on the podcast or looking for additional help on your journey to find more wealth,
scale, and freedom in your AEC company, visit our AEC resources page at
spotmigration.com/AEC-resources.